Iran's missiles. How close are they to hitting America? Right now, as you're watching this, 2 American aircraft carrier strike groups are moving toward the Middle East. Destroyers are positioned in the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Hundreds of fighter jets, F-15s, F-16s, F-35s, are sitting on runways in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain. And in Washington, intelligence officials are having conversations they really don't want the public to know about. Because here's the thing nobody is saying out loud clearly enough. Iran already has its missiles pointed at American soldiers. Not someday, not in a hypothetical future. Right now, today, tens of thousands of American military personnel are living, working, and sleeping inside the kill zone of Iran's existing ballistic missile arsenal. And most people have absolutely no idea. So let's fix that. Let's go deep into this. The missiles, the math, the money, and what it all actually means for where this is heading. Start with the geography, because geography is everything here. Iran sits at the center of the Middle East, like a fist. And from that fist, Tehran can launch missiles that travel up to 2,000 kilometers, roughly 1-200 miles, in any direction. Draw that circle on a map, and you'll feel your stomach drop. Because inside that circle sits almost every major American military installation in the entire region. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, that's the forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command, the nerve center of American military operations across the entire Middle East. It's inside that circle. Naval Support Activity Bahrain, home of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, the force responsible for the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and large portions of the Indian Ocean. Inside that circle, Camp Arifjan in Kuwait, a massive Army logistics and command hub. Inside the circle, Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait, Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. Every single one of them inside Iran's existing missile range. This isn't speculation. This isn't some worst-case analysis from a think tank nobody's heard of. This is the operational reality that American military commanders wake up to every single morning. The soldiers, sailors, and airmen stationed at these bases are not beyond Iran's reach. They are within it. And we know Iran is willing to use these weapons because they already have. In January 2020, hours after the United States killed General Qasem Soleimani in a drone strike near Baghdad airport, Iran launched more than a dozen ballistic missiles directly at American positions at Al-Asad Air Base in Iraq. These weren't warning shots fired into empty desert. They were precision strikes against coordinates where American troops were stationed. Dozens of U.S. service members were later diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries. That night proved something critical. Iran doesn't just possess these missiles as a deterrent. When pushed, Tehran pulls the trigger. Now here's where it gets even more complicated and more expensive. America has defenses against these missiles. The THAAD system, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, is one of the most sophisticated anti-ballistic missile technologies ever built. The Patriot system, ship-based interceptors, layers upon layers of protection, billions of dollars in engineering designed specifically to knock Iranian missiles out of the sky before they reach their targets. But here's the brutal math that the Pentagon doesn't advertise. In June 2025, when Iran and Israel exchanged missile fire, American forces reportedly fired more than 150 THAAD interceptors, 150, in a single engagement. Defense analysts who track Pentagon acquisition data say that number represents roughly 25% of the total THAAD interceptors the United States has funded to date across its entire program. Let that sink in. One conflict, one exchange. A quarter of America's most advanced missile defense inventory gone. And the economics are absolutely brutal on America's side of this equation. Iranian ballistic missiles, the short-range ones, the ones already aimed at U.S. bases, can cost a few $100,000 each to produce, maybe $500,000 for a more sophisticated variant. A THAAD interceptor costs approximately $12 million per missile. Every time Iran fires a weapon worth $300,000, America potentially responds with a weapon worth $12 million. That's a 40-to-1 cost exchange ratio, and it runs in Tehran's favor. Restocking these interceptors isn't like ordering office supplies. The manufacturing pipeline for advanced interceptors takes years. There is no warehouse somewhere with thousands of THAAD missiles waiting to be shipped. They are built to order, slowly, by specialized contractors with specialized supply chains, which means if you burn through your inventory fast enough, you are not getting it back quickly. And Iran's military planners know this just as well as America's military planners do. But all of that, the bases, the missiles, the interceptors, the economics, that's the present danger. The future danger is something else entirely, and it's what has American intelligence officials genuinely alarmed. Iran cannot currently hit the United States. Let's be absolutely clear about that. The continental United States is roughly 10,000 kilometers from Iran. Iran's known operational missiles max out at around 2,000 kilometers. There is a massive gap between where Iranian missiles can go today and where America's homeland sits. The eastern seaboard of the United States is not in danger from an Iranian missile strike today. The word to focus on is today, because the Defense Intelligence Agency, not a fringe organization, not an alarmist think tank, but the primary military intelligence agency of the United States government, has formally assessed that Iran possesses space launch vehicles that it could convert into a militarily viable intercontinental ballistic missile by 2035 if Tehran made the political decision to pursue that capability. The technology bridge that gets Iran from where it is now to ICBM capability isn't some exotic, impossibly complex leap. It's actually a fairly logical engineering progression, and Iran has been making that progression openly in front of the entire world under the banner of its civilian space program. Look at the Zul'Jana rocket. Iran has been launching this vehicle as part of what it describes as peaceful space exploration. But Western defense analysts look at the Zul'Jana and see something very specific: a solid fuel rocket. That distinction matters enormously. Liquid fuel rockets require time to fuel before launch. They're detectable. They give adversaries a window. Solid fuel rockets can sit ready indefinitely and launch with minimal preparation time. That's not a feature you need for putting satellites in orbit. That's a feature you need for a weapon of war. The gap between a space launch vehicle and a ballistic missile isn't a gap in physics. It's a gap in guidance systems, warhead design, and political will. Iran has been building the physics for years. And then there's the diplomatic dimension, which tells you everything about how Iran views these weapons. Right now, the United States and Iran are engaged in negotiations over Tehran's nuclear program. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said publicly that Iran's refusal to even discuss limits on its ballistic missile program is a major problem. Washington's position is logical. A nuclear weapon without a delivery system is just a very expensive paperweight. The missiles and the nuclear question cannot be separated. Iran's response: non-negotiable. Their missiles are defensive. Their missiles are off the table. Their missiles are a sovereign matter that no foreign power has any right to discuss, regardless of what those missiles can reach or what they might one day carry. That position tells you something. When a country calls its weapons purely defensive but refuses any discussion of limits, range, or deployment posture, it isn't actually describing defensive weapons. It's describing leverage. Iran's ballistic missile arsenal is Tehran's insurance policy, its bargaining chip, and its most concrete reminder to Washington that American forces in the region are not invulnerable. So here's where we are. Iran already threatens every major American military base in the Middle East with existing weapons it has already proven willing to use. American missile defenses, while technologically impressive, are expensive, finite, and face an unfavorable cost exchange against an adversary that can manufacture offensive missiles far cheaper than America can manufacture defensive interceptors. Iran's space program is quietly building the technological foundation for an intercontinental missile that intelligence agencies say could be ready within a decade. Diplomatic talks are stalled precisely because Tehran refuses to put its missile program on the table. And 2 American carrier strike groups are steaming toward the region right now. Every piece of this connects. The missiles explain the diplomacy. The diplomacy explains the military buildup. The military buildup explains the tension. And the tension explains why this story matters far more than its current news coverage suggests. This is not a regional dispute. This is not a Middle Eastern problem that stays in the Middle East. This is a situation where miscalculation, one wrong move, one missile that kills the wrong number of people, One retaliatory strike that crosses the wrong threshold could trigger a chain of events that pulls the entire world into something nobody is prepared for. Pay attention to this. It is moving fast, and the window to understand it before it becomes a crisis you can no longer ignore is closing.